Good evening, everybody. We will start soon.
YouTube में आवाज आ रही है? Fantastic. Then I think you can tell Jolly to start.
Good evening, everyone. I am delighted to welcome you all to the first webinar of the Biosphere Champions series. Before we start, please note that this session is being recorded for future reference and for those who could not join us today. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jolie Rajiv from United Schools Organization of India. I am the coordinator of this program. We are honored to have such distinguished guests joining us today, including esteemed officials from UNESCO, dedicated teachers, and enthusiastic students from schools across our nation. Today's webinar is a unique opportunity to bring together diverse minds and passionate heads dedicated to the preservation and celebration of our biosphere reserves. We are privileged to have the guidance and expertise of UNESCO officials leading this session. Their work in promoting and protecting our global natural heritage is truly inspiring, and we are eager to learn from their insights and experiences. To the teachers and students joining us today, your presence is invaluable. As educators and learners, you play a critical role in shaping the future of environmental stewardship. Your commitment to understanding and preserving our natural world is commendable, and we hope this webinar will enrich your knowledge and fuel your passion for conservation. Throughout this session, we will explore the significance of biosphere reserves, discuss the challenges they face, and celebrate the efforts of being made to safeguard these vital ecosystems. Thank you all for being here and for your dedication to this important cause. Let's make the most of this time together and embark on a journey of learning and collaboration. So, what exactly is Biosphere Reserve Champions? Biosphere Reserve Champions is a national competition dedicated to fostering a sustainable future. This exciting initiative is especially designed for school students from standard 6 to 12. Our main goal is to promote and engage young minds in the protection and sustainable management of the Earth's biosphere reserves. This remarkable program, Biosphere Reserve Champions, is organized by the United Schools Organization of India in collaboration with UNESCO. Together, USO and UNESCO are committed to nature. USO and UNESCO.
Good evening, everyone. Now let me share with you about the USO and its impact in the educational society. United Schools Organization of India is a registered society established in 1951, registered under the Indian Societies Registration Act 21. It is our mandate to advance the social, cultural and moral standard of schools in India to global levels by providing schools access to extracurricular tests, seminars, conferences, competitions, campaigns and programs on a national platform. It is our vision to create a future where every school in our nation has access to a vibrant and enriching extracurricular ecosystem that fosters individual talents, instills values, and empowers educators and students to excel academically and as responsible global citizens. Now, I will introduce UNESCO to everyone. UNESCO is the United Nations educational, scientific, and cultural organization. It seeks to build peace through international cooperation in education, the sciences, and culture. UNESCO's programs contribute to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals defined in Agenda 2030, adopted by the UN General Assembly in 2015. Now let's get back to the Jolly ma'am. She will guide you through the session.
Thank you, Ms. Akansha. Now, may I request Ms. Neena Jain, Secretary General of USO, to say about the program. Neena ma'am, please.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Jolly ma'am. I hope I'm clear and everybody can hear me. I think we always tend to start these sessions with, am I audible? So just want to confirm, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
So
You are
good
audible.
evening to everybody who's joined us today. We are extremely lucky and fortunate that we have with us officials from UNESCO, Dr. Benno Boer and Dr. Neha Midha. I will introduce them in a minute. There are several teachers and students who are joining us through our YouTube live link. And from the chat, it appears that everybody is extremely active. So the energy after school continues. And of course, everyone else who's on the call, a very, very good evening to all of you. So this wonderful program, Biosphere Reserve Champions, highlights some SDGs that we'd like to focus on. These SDGs, and there are 5 of them, are SDG 6, Clean Water and Sanitation. Number 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. Number 12, Responsible Consumption and Production. Number 13, Climate Action. And number 15, Life on Land. So as you already know of the teachers who had joined us on the orientation call, this entire program is divided into 3 phases. We are in phase 1 of the program, and this is in fact starting today through our webinar series and goes on until August 15th. I'm sure that all the teachers would have got the resources, which are the Pockets of Hope, these wonderful booklets that have been created by UNESCO specifically on biosphere reserves, will be a great tool for you for class discussion purposes. This will also help the students understand what biosphere reserves exactly are, and hopefully if they are closer to where you're located, it would be wonderful if the students might go in and visit these biosphere reserves. So soft copy of these have already been shared with the schools. So as phase 1 that we are starting off, and for the benefit of the students who are on the call for the first time, we will have 3 webinar sessions. Today, which is Tuesday, tomorrow, Wednesday, and day after tomorrow, Thursday. Each day will have a different topic of the webinars. And these 3 webinars will be on topics on biosphere reserves in India, the ecosystems, our environment, pollution, which also highlights plastic, and how it is connected to each one of us. So today is the first webinar in our series, and the topic of this webinar is UNESCO and Biosphere Reserves. We have 2 eminent speakers from UNESCO who are joining us on this call and who will go through the webinar series with you. So it is my honor to present to you our speaker, number 1, who is Dr. Benno Boer. He had just said hi a minute ago. He is the program specialist and he is also the chief of the Natural Science Unit at UNESCO. He is a project manager and has more than 30 years of international experience globally and has served in Europe, the Arab region, Africa, and Asia. He is currently at the UNESCO as the UNESCO Natural Science Specialist in New Delhi, and he focuses on the areas of Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, the Maldives, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, and also is also overseeing some regional and international projects. His work addresses socio-ecological issues And these are such as climate change, ecosystem conservation and restoration, blue carbon ecosystems, science education, catalyzing adaptation and mitigation options for sustainable human living in times of our rapid global changes. He is also the co-editor of the United Nations Issue-Based Coalition's Climate Science Literacy Materials, as well as the World Climate Education Atlas. He has published several books and has many peer-reviewed scientific articles, films, and other multimedia features to his credit. Dr. Benno, we are honored, really. I'm also going to introduce to you our second speaker and a very close associate, Dr. Neha Midha. She is the National Program Officer at the Natural Science Unit at UNESCO. She is an environment professional working with UNESCO for its Natural Sciences program and has more than 12 years of experience in natural resource management, water resource management, and wildlife conservation. Her academic background includes a PhD in natural resource management from the Wildlife Institute of India and a post-graduation in environment management from Forest Research Institute in India. So, Dr. Neha, welcome to both Dr. Benno and Dr. Neha. We are very, very honored that you took the time to join us. I am sure that this session will be an eye-opening one for the students who are joining us via YouTube Live. So with that, I will hand over the controls and the reins to you.
Say something.
Okay, thank you very much, Nina. At first, let me thank the Secretary General of USO, Nina Jain, and the whole team of United Schools Organization India for your cooperation and your partnership. And we are at UNESCO really, really happy to have such a wonderful partner like the one that you are, with your fantastic enthusiasm, professionalism, and your reach out capacity to young professionals, to the youth, and to children indeed. So thank you very much. I would also like to thank my own team here, my colleague who sits next to me, Dr. Neha Midha, as well as the whole team of the Natural Science Unit of UNESCO in New Delhi, Ms. Elizabeth Vasu and Srishti Kumar, and our two interns, Ruben Malikar and Harithri Oyathan. So many thanks also to my team, and thank you very much to the audience for your interest in what we are discussing today, which really relates to the triple planetary crisis that every community on the planet suffers from, which includes biodiversity issues and climate issues and turning from pollution to resources management, really. I think we have prepared a presentation for you that perhaps we can share that now. We are dealing with perhaps the best answer that the whole of the United Nations has available for enhancing human living in harmony with nature, which is the Biosphere Reserves. It's the global network of Biosphere Reserves. We have now more than almost 750 Biosphere Reserves. In the next few days that might change, because we just had the International Coordination Council meeting taking place in the city of Agadir in Morocco, where new Biosphere Reserves have been added to the existing 748 Biosphere Reserves in the world, 12 of which are in India. So Biosphere Reserves are very special places. They exist since 1971. They have been developed by visionaries who already such a long time ago realized that the unbridled exploitation of natural resources cannot continue as it happened even then, And so we will tell you a little bit something about Biosphere Reserves, and we are really very happy that so many young people are interested in Biosphere Reserve management. And who knows, perhaps some of you in the future will become professional Biosphere Reserve managers yourselves. So the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, known as UNESCO, was established in November 1945. And UNESCO's mission is to contribute to the building of a culture of peace, the eradication of poverty, sustainable development and intercultural dialogue through education, the sciences, culture, communication and information. The reason why this agency was established in 1945 was, of course, the undescribable suffering of humanity after the First and the Second World Wars, when the founding fathers and the founding mothers of UNESCO decided to establish an organization beyond bilateral agreements, beyond bilateral peace agreements of countries. It was decided that humanity needs a platform that brings people together on the platforms of education, science and culture, bring people together from different nationalities, different ethnicities, different religious backgrounds, so that all of us can live better in peace with each other and understanding each other. And here we are at the UNESCO office in New Delhi, and we are the office that supports UNESCO activities in Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, the Maldives, Nepal and Sri Lanka. And you can see here on this map the very obvious. We have the giant of India with 1.4 billion people living in it, and India is growing rapidly. It has currently an average age of 28 years, but India is set to add an additional 250 million people in the next 35 years because of population dynamics. So it will become by far the largest country in the world by population. But India is also one of the only 3 countries on the planet that has ecosystems that range all the way from below the seawater, such as coral reefs, all the way up to above 8,000 meters above sea level in the Himalaya mountain chain. These ecosystems, only 3 countries in the world have that. That is, of course, India. It's also the neighboring countries, Pakistan and China. Moreover, India has a vast coastline of more than 7,500 kilometers in length and a lot of islands. We are then also supporting Sri Lanka, which is an island nation, which is currently exposed to economic difficulties. But Sri Lanka has the advantage as the only country in South and Central Asia that has reached population equilibrium. That means the population is not growing that much anymore. Then we have the Maldives, which is a country that consists of 1,192 islands. It's also the lowest lying country in the world above sea level. And because of sea level rise and storm surges, cyclones, tsunamis, etc., of course, that makes the Maldives a country that is very vulnerable to these kind of changes. Then we have Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is the country with not only with together with India, with the largest standalone mangrove forest in the world, the Sundarbans, but Bangladesh is also the country that naturally receives more cyclones than any other country in the world, and these cyclones with climate change are on the increase. In addition to that, then there is Bhutan with a small population of not even 1 million people in the Himalayas, and Bhutan is perhaps the only or one of the few countries in the world that is climate neutral or even climate positive. And then we have the Nepal as the other country in the Himalayas. So 6 completely different countries with different economies and different socio-ecological realities. In UNESCO, for you to understand it a little bit more, we have, of course, the culture sector. Culture sector is very famous for the protection of cultural heritage sites, such as the Taj Mahal, for example. But that's by far not the only UNESCO World Heritage Site in India. There is a total of 42 World Heritage Sites in India that have been listed by UNESCO right now. But I am convinced that India has much more capacity than this. We have the natural science sector that consists of 3 divisions dealing with science policy development and basic science such as chemistry and physics and biology and mathematics, engineering. And it also deals with hydrological science, eco-hydrology, and with ecology and geoscience. And it also hosts the World Network of Biosphere Reserves. On this map now you can see a map of India, and the green dots that you can see, each one of these green dots is an existing UNESCO Biosphere Reserve that has successfully been listed by the International Coordination Council of UNESCO. But India is a very large country, so it could perhaps in the future have 50 or maybe even 100 biosphere reserves. So we have the culture sector in UNESCO, we have the natural science sector in UNESCO. We also have an education sector that is actually our largest sector, and in a nutshell, it deals to provide education for all, because unlike us people in this meeting here, there are quite a number of people in the world who unfortunately do not have access to education or limited access to education. We also have a sector on communication and information. They are aiming at the free flow of information for everybody. And we have the social and human sciences sector. They deal, for example, with the management of social transformations, but they also teach on how to learn living together with different people of different religions, different ethnicities, different opinions, different backgrounds, different nationalities. Yes, and I think with this, I have made an introduction to UNESCO. I hope that you could follow me and that you learned perhaps something, and I'll hand over to my colleague, Dr. Neha Mehta, who sits here next to me. So many thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Benno. So to continue, in a few slides, I'm going to talk about the UNESCO Man and Biosphere program, about what is a biosphere reserve, how it is designated, what is its importance for a country and for us. So whenever we talk about biodiversity conservation, forest conservation, wildlife conservation, there are different schools of thoughts. Initially in 1940s, 50s, 60s, the school of thought was to protect an area, to protect a forest, to protect wildlife. Forces and fences approaches were used. That area needs to be protected, just put a fence around the area, completely prohibit any human activity. And here, human activity at that time would mean livestock grazing, taking out fuel wood, taking out grasses, taking out plants for medicinal use, honey, wax, whatever is the requirement of the people who are dependent on this forest. Complete prohibition of any human activity is what was thought is required for protecting any wild area, any natural area. That school of thought has now changed, and now it's called landscape approach. Now it's believed that all ecosystems are connected and people play an important part, and it's a part of, we are also part of the nature, and the people especially living close to this forest area have the right to this area. They are dependent on this forest for their livelihood, for their living, for their culture. So that's how the idea of Biosphere Reserve using landscape approach came about. So how now this Biosphere Reserve using landscape approach are managed nowadays through protected area management. Here now I would like to show you a film. It's a very short film, but will give you a glimpse about.
But tell them to increase on their phone because we checked it.
Jolly, do confirm if you're not able to hear the audio or video.
Yes, Nega, we can hear you.
This is Julie. She likes to spend the holidays visiting her Uncle George on his farm. She's heard that the entire region where her uncle lives has just been selected by UNESCO as a designated Biosphere Reserve.
We're not able to see the video.
Julie.
Okay. Sorry for that. That's why I wanted to confirm. Just give me a minute, huh?
Take your time, no worries.
This is Julie.
Yes.
Is it okay
She
now?
likes to spend the holidays visiting her Uncle George on his farm. She's heard that the entire region where her uncle lives has just been selected by UNESCO as a designated Biosphere Reserve. Julie isn't too sure about that. What exactly is a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve? Is it something like an Indian reservation? And will they be putting a fence around it? Then she probably wouldn't be allowed to roam around the woods and fields anymore. And Uncle George might have to get rid of his tractor and use a carriage instead. Uncle George can put his niece's mind at rest. He explains that a Biosphere Reserve helps humans and the environment to get along better, and it does so without damaging the lovely landscape. It doesn't need fences, just well-balanced interaction between humans and nature. Uncle George has also discovered some advantages for himself, such as opportunities to make his farm even more profitable, and this in ways that benefit nature and the region. For Uncle George, not much has changed, and Julie can continue to explore the woods and fields. But something is different. Julie is curious to find out what. The Biosphere Reserve now offers lots of new activities. Julie and other visitors can explore the area with a ranger or follow adventure trails to learn exciting facts about animals and plants. Of course, the local hotels, restaurants and tradespeople benefit from the visitors, so any doubts among the population are quickly dispelled. Many are seeing the advantages and forming corporations so that they can also participate actively in the development of the Biosphere Reserve. Julie thinks Biosphere Reserves are great and is almost a bit envious of her uncle because he gets to work where other people spend their holidays. And because businesses can develop so well in Biosphere Reserves, she might find a job there herself one day. Why not visit a Biosphere Reserve near you sometime? There are more of them than you think.
Coming back to the presentation, so the video basically talk about that people usually think that if an area is protected, the economic development of that area is not possible. So the landscape approach is what Biosphere Reserve is about, where it talks about economic development also, but the approach that would be required has to be sustainable for the environment. So based on that thoughts, in 1970s, UNESCO program on Man and Biosphere Reserve was launched. It's an intergovernmental program, which means that countries like India, which are part or which are member of United Nations, can take part in this Man and Biosphere program and can nominate areas within India for this international designation of Biosphere Reserve. So like I said, any area which a government like India, any national government would like to have the designation of Biosphere Reserve, they nominate that area, they make a nomination dossier and they submit that to UNESCO. And if that area fulfill the criteria that has been put forward by UNESCO, this international designation of Biosphere Reserve is given to that area. And Dr. Benno has shown those 12 Biosphere Reserve which have been first nominated by India to UNESCO, and then UNESCO has given the designation of Biosphere Reserve to these 12 areas. So what are the criteria which UNESCO looks at when it gives designation to any area of Biosphere Reserve? That area needs to have the conservation. The conservation is the priority. The biodiversity conservation, ecosystem conservation, species conservation. The area has to protect the species that are present in that area. Then it has also to talk about economic development, how that area is making sure that development, especially economic development of the people living within the Biosphere Reserve and outside the Biosphere Reserve is being taken care by government of that state and also by the central government. Then that Biosphere Reserve has to also take care of logistic support. Here logistic support means that research, tourism, education, training, like in this particular in this project with USO, that's what we believe that children, youth needs to know about Biosphere Reserve. Those kind of training and education is provided by Biosphere Reserve to general public. So how does it actually work? So whenever an area is designated at Biosphere Reserve, it needs to have 3 zones. So in the center, it's the core zone, which state government, forest department identify based on the scientific study. What this core zone is basically the high biodiversity rich area, or it could be the habitat of threatened species. It has to represent the unique ecosystem representative of that area, and it has to be a habitat of a threatened species. That's how you identify different core area. Earlier, when nature conservation used to be done, just a fence around the entire area used to be done. But now only those areas which really require protection, they are identified based on the scientific study, and then these areas are legally protected. And here no human activity other than research is allowed. And then this core area are surrounded by buffer zone. So in this buffer zone is where people can live. And these are the people who have always been living in this forest and have been dependent on this forest for their cultural and livelihood. And in this buffer area, human activity is allowed. This buffer area are usually multi-purpose zone where tourism can takes place, recreation activity can take place. People can take out the natural resource out of the forest, but how much and how many times in a year is decided by the forest department along with people living in that area. So that kind of understanding has to be developed between the government and the local people living in that area. Then this buffer zone are surrounded by transition zone. Here human activity again is allowed with limited activity, but but more compared to buffer zone. So that's how the biosphere reserve zonation and its function are there, and an area then is designated as biosphere reserve. So these are the man and biosphere criteria which UNESCO looks for whenever a country nominate an area for the biosphere reserve. First, it has to be a representative of unique ecosystem. It has to demonstrate sustainable development approaches. It has to show those innovative approaches. I will share with you 2 or 3 examples from India only, where they have shown that how wildlife and people can live together, and a balance can be made between development and conservation. Then every biosphere reserve needs to have appropriate zoning, and then the function, biodiversity conservation, logistic function, and economic development. All the 3 function has to be taken care. And then government needs to have arrangement. They needs to have particular forest department. State government needs to give fund for functioning of this biosphere reserve. Central government need to allocate funds. So once all these criteria are fulfilled, biosphere reserve designation is given by UNESCO. This is just a process which is followed. Can leave this by. So like this slide has already been shared, there are 12 biosphere reserves in India. So let's start with Sundarban. I will give you an example from Sundarban. Sundarban is located in West Bengal. And if you look at this map, this is the map of Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. Here is Bay of Bengal, and the dark black area is the core area where no human activity is allowed. The light gray, dark gray area is the buffer zone where people live and are dependent on Sundarban Biosphere Reserve for their livelihood and other activities. Then this buffer is surrounded by transition zone where other human activities are allowed to take place. Here again, I would like to show you a very short film from Sundarban Biosphere Reserve.
আমি সুন্দরবন বায়োস্ফিয়ার রিজার্ভে কুমিরমারি গ্রামে থাকি।
Covering an area of 9,630 square kilometers, Sundarbans is the world's largest remaining tectonically active deltaic mangrove.
Yeah.
Can you see the video?
Yeah, now we can. If you can just, yeah, great.
আমি সুন্দরবন বায়োস্ফিয়ার রিজার্ভে কুমিরমারি গ্রামে থাকি।
Covering an area of 9,630 square kilometers, Sundarbans is the world's largest remaining tectonically active deltaic mangrove forest. With an exceptional range of flora and fauna, it has the highest number of mangrove biodiversity globally. This is the only mangrove tigerland in the world. Measures taken by the management have been effective in controlling human-tiger conflict. Nylon net fences have been erected along the forest village interfaces. Quick response teams are stationed at strategic locations to manage tiger straying incidents. Regular interactions with fringe villagers have improved mass awareness in Sundarbans remarkably.
আমার সুন্দরবন গর্বে।
Yeah. So that was a very short film about Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. I hope that you all noticed that in the end there was a man who was wearing that mask. That's quite particular to Sundarbans. I'm sure few of you would know why people wear such mask when they venture inside any forest area. People living close to the Sundarban, they are, like I said, they are dependent on this biodiversity rich area. It's a mangrove forest. In the film also, you have seen it's a dense mangrove forest, and it's the only mangrove forest in the world with tigers. So tiger is the flagship species in Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. And Sundarban is also famous for its honey. So these local communities living close to this inside the Biosphere Reserve, they go inside the forest from the month of March to May, and they stay inside the forest for 3 to 4 or a week, and then they collect honey through different mechanism. So one of the thing, as I said, it's a dense forest. So one of the the risk there is being killed by a tiger. In Sundarban, every year, 6 traditional, that's what we call, people who have always been collecting honey from this forest get killed by a tiger attack. And when we talk about nature conservation, when we talk about people conservation, these are the conflict areas which government needs to take care of. If people get killed by tiger, ultimately people will also kill tiger back for their own protection, for avoiding the risk. So this is how, this is what we call human wildlife or human tiger conflict. So you look at this photo with the mask. So these are the few of the strategies that are now done by local people. It's believed that tiger only attack when from the back, basically on the neck. So if it to confuse the tiger that with the eyes is why the masks are worn when these people go inside the forest. And then when these people are collecting honey, then they also used these instruments to scare away any wild animal. So like I said, there is a conflict situation, human wildlife conflict situation in Sundarban. So what forest department or what innovative approach the forest department of Sundarban Biosphere Reserve took is, in the buffer area, they gave these apiary boxes to these local people, and along with other equipments, and they when they go inside to put these apiary boxes, so these are the area where there is a very particular kind of species of honeybee, particular kind of flowers. So the honey has to be produced in this area only to have that quality of honey that people look for when they look for honey from Sundarbans. So the government has given them these apiary boxes, and they fenced off that area where these apiary boxes are kept. And that's how, and then these people leave the forest, and the honey keep on getting produced, and then they go inside the forest within this fenced area, and then they bring back these apiary boxes. And that's how these people are nowadays producing honey from Sundarbans. And forest department has been able to avoid more conflict between the people and the wildlife. So these are again nylon fencing that has been done so that the tiger does not stray inside the villages which are located close to tiger habitat. Then another example from Biosphere Reserve is from Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserve. So if you look at here, there are two core areas which has been identified based on the scientific study. Then these are surrounded by a buffer area. And here the transition area is only on the one side. There is no fit for all strategy for a biosphere reserve. It depends upon the location, it depends upon the scientific study, it depends upon, in consultation with the local people, which area need to be recognized into which zone. So here the issue which Nanda Devi faces in terms of his protection is the religious tourism. The sites of Badrinath and Hemkund Sahib are located in Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserve, and a major issue of waste management is a part of conflict in this Biosphere Reserve. So here the forest department has introduced the concept of responsible tourism. Here the responsible tourism is done by the local community itself. So the government has provided capacity building trainings to the youth of those area only on search and rescue method, medical, nature guide, cooking, and these local people only can sell the woolen product to the tourists that comes to this area. And they have also done a systematic garment management system. So all these things are done by a community there only. So the community there have to feel to be a part of being living in such a hostile environment. So they feel that their economic development is also being taken care by government, and not only restriction about not going inside the forest is being put there. Government also is thinking about their development, about their livelihood, about their development also. So that's one example from Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserve. Another example is from Gulf of Mannar. So Gulf of Mannar Biosphere Reserve is located in Tamil Nadu, state of Tamil Nadu. Again, it's a hotspot for marine biodiversity, mangrove forest. Here the core area, buffer area, is the form of the islands, and it's poverty is a major issue here. About 56,000 families are below poverty line, growing population. Then fishing is the major livelihood for the people living in this area, and overexploitation is one of the major issue of conflict between forest department and the people who are dependent on Gulf of Mannar for their livelihood or for their own cultural activities. So So here also another example where communities have been taken in consultation with forest department. Here the forest department and the people living close to Gulf of Mannar, they sit together and they decide on which area can be harvested for fishing at one time of the year or not. So they make a map where they decide that we can leave this area. This area will be a no fishing area for the next 2 years. This area we will do fishing, and these are the equipment which all the local people would use for fishing. They will not harm the wildlife of the habitat of the wildlife. They have also put in limits on how much fishing can be done in particular month. So all this together, people and the forest department decide on how to conserve that area. These are the few of the schemes given by forest department, by the government. Credits are provided to these people to buy nets and boats. So I shared that there are 12 biosphere reserve in India. Similarly, there are in total 759 biosphere reserve that have been recognized by UNESCO, and these biosphere reserve have showcased, highlighted these similar innovative approaches of conserving a wild area and a natural area, along with people making sure that the economic development is not hampered for the people which are living in such harsh condition. With Biosphere Reserve, there are different networks that are formed so that different Biosphere Reserve can share their best case studies with each other. So there is also a youth forum which has been formed by Man and Biosphere, by UNESCO Man and Biosphere Forum, where youth from the age of 18 to 25 get together and they share their experience of living inside a biosphere reserve, or any innovative approaches of the biosphere reserve which are close to their house, and they share with other international community. Like Dr. Benno shared that Biosphere Reserve are sites for achieving almost all the sustainable development goals, all the 17 sustainable goals. That's it from my side. Thank you. Yeah, I hope that I was able to give you an idea about how a biosphere reserve actually function and how important different approaches are required, especially for safeguarding a wild area, and how it is important that people are considered as a part of nature conservation. Thank you. Back to you, Jolly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Neha. I think Jolly ma'am is answering phone calls. But either ways, thank you very much. That was very insightful. It's important for us. I think the eye-opening experience for us personally was that there are several biosphere reserves throughout the world, but only 12 in India. Given that we are the 7th largest country, perhaps we can keep that in mind. And the young students who are joining us via YouTube live, they'll probably be able to make more headway into this than going ahead in the future. But that is a wonderful and insightful presentation in terms of the core area, the transition area of the biosphere reserves, how they function, and great that we are able to learn about it from you. So with respect to the next thing on our agenda, I know that the chat is very, very active with the students. I don't know how much of it, the questions I think get lost in the several chats that we have. and the messages, but maybe what we can do is that invite questions from the students who can send it to us via email, and then we can probably share it with you and get those answered. Because as it stands now, the chat box is extremely active, with a lot of students writing a lot of remarks. Mainly it is touching up with each other. So I think we'll collect the questions and then proceed later on and get them answered tomorrow as far as the biosphere is concerned. And meanwhile, for the benefit of the schools and the students, in terms of next steps, all the students will join the webinar, and the teachers as well will join the webinar tomorrow at 4 p.m., which is the same time. And I think it might be a good idea for us to turn the chat off until the time of the questions, so that we are actually able to identify key questions. The webinar for tomorrow is going to be on plastics and agroforestry. Again, officials from UNESCO will take us and guide us through plastics and agroforestry both. It will be very insightful for us to understand, and I believe I'm looking forward to it, because I am a big advocate of not using plastic given its adverse effects on our environment. So I'm sure that we all will follow that. YouTube live link for that will be shared tomorrow in the morning via email and WhatsApp as well. So with that, Dr. Neha, is there anything else before we conclude? I think we'll share the emails with you with the questions that the students have.
Sure, I look forward to receiving questions, and I will try my level best to answer all.
Yeah, children are very creative. They come up with such unique ideas, and their creativity always baffles me. I think as we, with them having been exposed to all of these, I'm sure they are able to think of it more creatively. So in any case, I want to thank you very, very much, Dr. Neha and Dr. Benno, for the time taken to take the students through this journey, introduce what Biosphere Reserves are, because at the end of the day, that's what our program is based on, Biosphere Reserves. So thank you very much for taking us through what they are exactly. I hope that gives all the students and the teachers a clearer picture. And now I think the booklet, which is Pockets of Hope, will be a little bit more, will have some context in everyone's mind. So with that, we'd like to conclude the webinar for today. Thank you once again, Dr. Neha. We'll be in touch, of course. And all the students who are there, please do subscribe, like, and share. If you know the students who will benefit from this knowledge, please by all means share the video with them. The YouTube live link you already have. And that way, at least the message of what Biosphere Reserves are, how they're identified, and the wonderful work that UNESCO is doing on this front will be spread across many, many other students as well. Great. All right. Thank you very, very much. Have a great evening, everybody. And Dr. Neha, next time, cup of tea from our side. But I'll have a cup ready.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Neha.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.